Once again, a very good morning to all the students here. I'm back again with ML lecture 22, that is cost benefit analysis. So, in today's lecture, our objective would be to understand that what exactly is cost benefit analysis, why do we need it, and why we should always do cost benefit analysis, why it is done in various concerns. So, without wasting any time, let us just understand what exactly is cost benefit analysis. So cost benefit analysis, sometimes it is also called benefit cost analysis, which is a systematic approach to estimating the strength and weaknesses of alternatives used to determine options which provide the best approach to achieving benefits while preserving savings, for example, in transactions, activities, and functional business requirements. A CBA may be used to compare completed or potential courses of actions, or to estimate the value against the cost of a decision, project, or policy. It is commonly used in commercial transactions, business or policy decisions, particularly public policy and project investments. For example, the US Securities and Exchange Commission has to conduct cost benefit analysis before instituting regulations or deregulations. CBA has two main applications: to determine if an investment or a decision is sound, ascertaining if and by how much its benefit outweigh its cost. Secondly, to provide a basis for comparing investments or decisions, comparing the total expected cost of each option with its total expected benefits. So here in the slides you can see cost is any negative effect on an organization resulting from the implementation of the projects. Example is the maintenance cost, the environmental cost, research and development cost, and the labor cost. And if we talk about benefit, a benefit is any positive effect on the organization resulting from the implementation of the project. Exemplary, the increase in productivity, reduction in the cost, and saving time. So cost benefit is a tool which modern financial analysts adopt before undertaking any financial operation or commercial activity. The ultimate aim of a business organization is to make profits. Therefore, any system in the organization must produce more benefits as compared to its cost for the organization to survive and prosper. So, here we can conclude that the benefits are greater than the cost. So, CBA is related to cost effectiveness analysis. Benefits and cost in CBA are expressed in monetary terms and are adjusted for the time value of money. All flows of benefits and cost over time are expressed on a common basis in terms of their net present value, regardless of whether they are incurred at different times. Other related techniques include cost utility analysis, risk benefit analysis, economic impact analysis, fiscal impact analysis, and social return on investment analysis, which is called SROI. So, cost benefit analysis is often used by organizations to appraise the desirability of a given policy. It is an analysis of the expected balance of benefits and cost, including an account of any alternatives and the starts queues. CBA help predict whether the benefits of a policy outweigh its cost and by how much, relative to other alternatives. This allows the ranking of alternative policies in terms of a cost benefit ratio. Generally, accurate cost benefit analysis identifies choices which increase welfare from a utilitarian perspective. Assuming an accurate CBA, changing the status quo by implementing the alternative with the lowest cost benefit ratio can improve Pareto efficiency. Although CBA can offer an informed estimate of the best alternative, a perfect appraisal of all present and future costs and benefits is difficult. Perfection in economic efficiency and social welfare is not guaranteed. The value of a cost benefit analysis depends on the accuracy of the individual cost and benefit estimates. Comparative studies indicate that such estimates are often flawed, preventing improvements in Pareto and Kaldor-Hicks efficiency. Interest groups may attempt to include significant cost in an analysis to influence its outcome. Now let us move on to the history of this. The concept of cost benefit analysis dates back to an 1848 article by Julius Tippett and was formalized in subsequent works by Alfred Marshall. Jules Tippett pioneered this approach by first calculating the social profitability of a project like the construction of a road or a bridge. In an attempt to answer this, Tippett began to look at the utility users would gain from the project. He determined that the best method of measuring utility is by learning one's willingness to pay for something. By taking the sum of each user's willingness to pay, Tippett illustrated that the social benefit of the thing, bridge or road or canal, could be measured. Some users may be willing to pay nearly nothing, others much more, but the sum of these would shed light on the benefit of it. It should be reiterated that Tippett was not suggesting that the government perfectly price discriminate and charge each user exactly what they would pay. Rather, their willingness to pay provided a theoretical foundation on the societal worth or benefit of a project. The cost of the project proved much simpler to calculate. Simply taking the sum of the materials and labor in addition to the maintenance afterward would give one the cost. Now, the cost and benefits of the project could be accurately analyzed and an informed decision could be made. The Corps of Engineers initiated the use of CBAs in the US after the Federal Navigation Act of 1936 mandated cost benefit analysis for proposed federal waterway infrastructure. The Flood Control Act of 1939 was instrumental in establishing CBA as federal policy, requiring that the benefits to whomever they accrue in excess of the estimated cost. Now, what is the public policy? CBA's application to broader public policy began with the work of Otto Exton, who laid out a welfare economics foundation for CBA and its application to water resource development in 1958. It was applied in the US to water quality, recreational travel, and land conservation during 1960. And the concept of option value was developed to represent the non tangible value of resources such as national parks. CBA was expanded to address the intangible and tangible benefits of public policies relating to mental illness, substance abuses, college education, and chemical waste. In the US, the National Environmental Policy Act of 1969 required CBA for regulatory programs. Since then, other governments have enacted similar rules. Government guidebooks for the application of CBA to provide public policies include Canadian Guide for Regulatory Analysis, the Australian Guide for Regulation and Finance, and the US Guides for Healthcare and Emergency Management Programs. Now, moving on to the next slide. In health economics, CBA may be an inadequate measure because willingness to pay methods of determining the value of human life can be influenced by income level. Variants such as cost utility analysis, Twelly and Daly to analyze the effects of health policies may be more suitable. For some environmental effects, cost benefit analysis can be replaced by cost effectiveness analysis. This is especially true when one type of physical outcome is sought, such as a reduction in energy use by increase in energy efficiency. Using cost effectiveness analysis is less laborious and time consuming since it does not involve the monetization of outcomes, which can be difficult in some cases. It has been argued that if modern cost benefit analysis had been applied to decisions such as whether to mandate the removal of lead from the gasoline, block the construction of two proposed dams just above and below the Grand Canyon on the Colorado River, and regulate workers' exposure to vinyl chloride. The measures would not have been implemented, although all the considered highly successful. So the US Clean Air Act has been cited in retrospective studies as a case in which benefits exceeded cost, but knowledge of the benefits attributable largely to the benefits of the reducing particulate pollution, was not able until many years later. Now, what is the process of generic benefit analysis? It has got the following steps. First of all, you need to define the goals and the objectives of the action. Second, you have to list alternative actions. Third, you have to list the stakeholders. Then you have to select measurements and measure all cost and benefit elements. You need to predict outcomes of cost and benefits over the relevant time period. You need to convert all cost and benefits into a common currency and then apply a discount rate. Then calculate the net present value of actions under consideration. Then perform sensitivity analysis and adopt the recommended course of action. Next is evaluation. A CV attempts to measure the positive or negative consequences of a project. A similar approach is used in environmental analysis of total economic value. Both cost and benefits can be diverse. Costs tend to be most thoroughly represented in cost benefit analysis due to relatively abundant market data. The net benefits of a project may incorporate cost savings, public willingness to pay, implying that the public has no legal rights to benefits of the policy, or willingness to accept compensation, implying that the public has a right to the benefits of the policy or the policy's welfare change. The guiding principle of evaluating benefits is to list all the parties affected by an intervention and add the positive or negative value, usually monetary, that they ascribe to its effect on the welfare. The actual compensation an individual would require to have their welfare unchanged by a policy is inexact at best. Surveys or market behavior are often used to estimate compensation associated with a policy. Stated preferences are a direct way of assessing willingness to pay for an environmental feature. Survey respondents often misreport their true preferences, however, and market behavior does not provide information about important non market welfare impacts. Revealed preference is an indirect approach to individual willingness to pay. People make market choices of items with different environmental characteristics, for example, revealing the value placed on environmental factors. The value of human life is controversial when assessing road safety measures or life saving medicines. Controversy can sometimes be avoided by using the relative technique of cost utility analysis, in which benefits are expressed in non monetary units such as quality adjusted life years. Road safety can be measured in cost per life saved without assigning a financial value to the life. However, non monetary metrics have limited usefulness for evaluating policies with substantially different outcomes. Other benefits may also accrue from a policy, and metrics such as the cost per life saved may lead to a substantially different ranking of alternatives than CBA. Another metric is valuing the environment, which in the 21st century is typically accessed by valuing ecosystem services to the humans, such as air and water quality and pollution. Monetary values may also be assigned to other intangible effects such as business reputation, market penetration, or long term enterprise strategy alignment. Then the Now, these are the general steps of cost benefit analysis. First of all, we need to specify the project clearly. Then, we describe quantitatively the inputs and outputs of the program. Then, we need to estimate the social cost and benefits of these inputs and outputs of the program. And finally, we compare these benefits and cost. The first step is we need to specify clearly the project or the program. This includes the first step is to decide on the perspective from which the study is to be done. When we have decided on the perspective on the main elements of the project, such as the study of the location, timing, group involved, the connection with other programs, etc., it should be considered. When the project is fixed, the following two programs are involved. One is the physical project, and second, these projects are, these projects are physical in nature, which is done when an area is polluted, like public waste treatment plants or hazardous waste removal, etc. Second one is the regulatory project. Now, this project regulates the amount of pollution in the society, like enforcement of environmental laws and regulation, water disposal practice, restrictions of land for certain activities, etc. The second step is describe quantitatively the inputs and outputs of the program. Now, for some projects, it is easy to identify the input and output. For example, if we are planning a wastewater treatment project, the staffs of that project or program will be able to provide a full physical specification of the plant, together with the inputs required to build it and keep it running. However, it is harder to predict the externalities caused by the disposition of nuclear waste. Because a restriction on development in a particular area can be expected to detect development elsewhere into the surrounding areas. The third is estimate the social cost and benefit of these inputs and outputs. The next step is to put values on input and output flows, that is, to measure cost and benefits. Could do this in any units, but in many cases, we will be dealing with effects, especially on the benefit side, that are not directly registered on market. Next is how to compare these benefit and cost. Next step is to make comparison between cost incurred and benefit derived from the project. One of them is to subtract the total cost from the total benefit to get net benefit. The formula here is given: total cost minus total benefit is equals to net benefit. Now, if the net benefit is positive, then the cost benefit is positive, and if the net benefit is negative, then the cost benefit is negative. Now, in studying the cost benefit analysis, we should be aware of some of the costs incurred in it, and they are: first is the pollution prevention cost. It implies that the cost which is spent by the government or individual or local bodies or firms in order to prevent pollution fully or partially. These types of costs are spent before pollution is created in society. These costs are also called as abatement cost. Second is called pollution damage cost. These are the costs incurred in the elimination of pollution that has already occurred for. Welfare damage cost. If, for example, an area is being polluted and the government or the private sector did not take up any step to eradicate that pollution, then it will lead to a damage in the welfare of the society. Therefore, pollution that is not prevented resulted in damaging the welfare of the society. These are the results. Now, this is diagram a graph which you can see the cost to the society due to pollution. Pollution costs are mainly opportunity cost or real cost because if the pollution has not occurred, this amount would be spent for alternative activity which gives welfare to the society. Now, keeping this, we are drawing the total damage cost curve (TDC), which refers to the total external cost. This curve increases in an increasing rate, stating that with an increase in the pollution, the cost increases. The other curve is the total cost of the pollution (TCC). This curve slopes upward from right to left. This implies that for acquiring less pollution, we have to spend more money. Having drawn the two curves, the good approach is to minimize the sum of TDC and TCC. In other words, by minimizing the sum of TDC and TCC, we can acquire the optimum pollution and the social benefit will be high. A CBA generally attempts to put all relevant costs and benefits using time value of money calculations. This is often done by converting the future expected stream of cost C and benefits B into a present value amount with a discount rate R and the net present value defined as NPV, where T is equals to 0 to summation Bt minus Ct divided by 1 plus Rt. The selection of a discount rate for this calculation is subjective. A smaller rate values the current generation and future generations equally. Larger rates, a market rate of return, for example, reflects human present bias or hyperbolic discounting, valuing money which they will receive in the near future more than money they will receive in the distant future. Empirical studies suggest that people discount future benefits in a way similar to these calculations. The choice makes a large difference in assessing interventions with long-term effects. An example is the equity premium puzzle, which suggests that long-term returns on equities may be higher than they should be after controlling for risk and uncertainty. If so, market rates of return should not be used to determine the discount rate because they would undervalue the distant futures. Now, with this, I'm coming over to the end of this lecture, and I hope cost benefit analysis is clear to all of you. Now, let me take you to the MCQ part. These are the merits and demerits, and then I'll be moving on to the MCQ part. The CBC analysis may be applicable for both new as well as old projects. It is based off accepted social principle, that is on individual preference. This method encourages development for new techniques for the evaluation of social benefits. The government is not completely aware of all the costs and benefits associated with the program. This is the first demerit. And second says this approach does not clearly state that who should bear the population control cost. So here is the conclusion part that you can see. So now with this, I'm stopping this presentation and I'm taking you over to the MCQ part to test your knowledge. So here are the questions. Please try to answer but quickly. Let me take you to the next set of questions. In a module of the new information system is activated at a time, and in prototyping, let me take you to the next set. Try to answer this quickly. Now, these are the next set of questions. So, with this, I hope you have learned a lot about cost benefit analysis, and with the help of MCQs, you were able to analyze and test yourself on the topic you have learned today. So, I am marking the end of this lecture with this MCQ. I hope you have learned a lot. In case you have any queries or question, you can just post it in your comment box, and I'll be very happy to answer all these questions. Till then, stay tuned on the lecture series of machine learning, and I'll be coming over with some more important and interesting chapters and lectures. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.